Now let's talk about the second stage of prototyping, rapid prototyping. Rapid prototyping stage is about making the refined idea more concrete. The goal is to create something that will let the user experience the conceptual idea of the designer so they can provide feedback for rapid iteration. Sometimes the iteration happens alongside the user, i.e., the user does the sketching with you. Before you start making a prototype, make decisions about different dimensions of fidelity. The idea of fidelity means how closely a prototype matches the final product. Your decision about which fidelity to choose is going to be dictated by what you're trying to learn from the user via the prototype. Basically, there are two levels of fidelity. Low fidelity. Low fidelity prototypes, they focus on conveying the conceptual idea of the design. They are characterized by a quick and easy translation of the design concept into a tangible and testable form, and they omit a lot of details. High fidelity prototypes, on the other hand, they are more detailed and may allow fully interactive simulations. We can choose to make them low fidelity in depth or breadth, but this does not usually happen. This diagram shows you different levels of fidelity that are usually found. So on the left side, we have low fidelity prototypes that are usually sketches, and as you move along horizontally, the fidelity increases. So in the middle, we have wireframes, mockups. These are often also called middle fidelity prototypes. And then high fidelity prototypes are usually functional, meaning that the backend has been implemented to some extent. So fidelity of a prototype has several dimensions. We are going to look at four main dimensions of fidelity. The first dimension that we're going to look at is look. So look refers to the appearance of the prototype. When you are interested in getting feedback on the conceptual design of the interface, you should use a low fidelity look. This helps the user focus their attention on improving the design of the task. If you use a high fidelity look, users find themselves trapped and lost in your perfect world. Their focus shifts from staying inside their own mental model to trying to adjust their mental model to your conceptual model. And unfortunately, they often fail miserably. And in doing so, they give you very trivial and mechanical feedback. Basically, the idea is that you start with very low fidelity looks, sketches, and after some iterations, you can start using stencils to create your prototypes, which will automatically increase the fidelity. But if you have done a lot of iterations and received a lot of feedback from your user, then you can move on to creating more high fidelity prototypes using technology tools. And the high fidelity prototype will start using graphical design theories to create interfaces. The second dimension is feel. And feel refers to the mode of interaction with the prototype. With paper prototypes, you only allow users to use their fingers to represent mouse clicks or touch actions. Or you can ask them to write with pencil on the prototype to simulate typing. But in high fidelity prototype, you can allow the user to experience more natural interactions. So in this diagram, you can see the other two dimensions of fidelity: functionality and features. So in this diagram, you need to understand that it increases horizontally in this direction and increases vertically in this direction. So when you are here in this corner, your prototypes are going to have very few features and very low functionality. But as you start going along this axis, then it means that you're adding more and more features to your prototype. At any point, you can start going down the axis to increase the functionality of any of the features. So for example, at this stage, you might not have all the features that the system is supposed to have, but you can start testing out the functionality of those features at various fidelity levels. Let's talk about the other two dimensions of fidelity. The dimension of breadth refers to the number of features represented by the prototype. A prototype that is low fidelity in breadth might be missing many features, having only enough to accomplish certain tasks. In the early versions of paper prototypes, breadth is usually low fidelity because your goal is to finalize conceptual design. Moreover, details of the interface are still unclear, which limits your ability to conceptualize the depth of the prototype. But this should change as you do more iterations. Closely linked to the idea of breadth is a horizontal prototype. When you end up creating a prototype that is all breadth, meaning it has only demonstrate the features but no functionality, then it's called a horizontal prototype. This is an example of a horizontal prototype, which is of high breadth. There are two different interfaces here. Each interface has a lot of functionality on it. Now all these functions might not be implemented. For example, if you click the button, it's possible that nothing is happening. So this is an example where the feature is implemented, but the functionality is missing. The final dimension that we are going to look at is depth. And depth refers to the degree of functionality. For example, when a prototype implements all the steps of a task from start to finish, then it is high fidelity in depth. Similarly, when it handles all the error messages, then it is high fidelity in depth. You can achieve high fidelity with paper prototypes as you iterate more and more. In fact, the goal of the paper prototype is to have low breadth so that the high depth can be achieved for each feature. Now, closely linked to the idea of depth are vertical prototypes. Vertical prototypes do not show every feature in a system, but they implement a small set in a nearly complete fashion. This is an example of a prototype of high depth or a vertical prototype. As you can see, it has a lot of features, but we don't exactly know what they are. What the designer has attempted to do here is he has implemented the entire functionality of this feature. So all the screens that are going to follow after clicking here have been created by the designer. And this is an idea of vertical prototype.